Hi guys! What? Whoa, okay, what the f was that? Jesus. Hi guys, we're back with another video, and I'm joined once again by Lynn, and this is going to be our very first time doing a video where I enact my new pause champing scheme, where I will do my best to only pause champ to talk about stuff and not talk over things like I've been doing since the beginning of my React channel. It's my apology, a way of apologizing, because I realized I might have been doing this slightly wrong, but I was new, so forgive me. You're going to forgive me, right?
React harder. Come on.
Hey, I'm just trying to pander to my audience, okay? So we are here today to adhere to the Final Fantasy XIV meta, God Save Yoshi P and all that jazz. And we're going to be watching the A Crap Guide to Final Fantasy XIV. We're going to watch the tank, healer, and DPS roles now. And we're going to watch the melee DPS, range DPS, and magic DPS in part 2. So for those Final Fantasy enjoyers out there, this is for you, baby. Also, by the way, YouTube, say hi to the Twitch people, and Twitch, say hi to the YouTube people. You guys should kiss.
To fartness, I bet you.
Oops. Haha, fartness.
What up, warriors of fartness? I bet you don't have the slightest clue how
I
to
love
play
this
this
guy's editing
eyeball-melting
skills.
anime game. Oh, sure, you probably know that you can beat up enemies by clicking on them until they die, but do you know...
So, as a World of Warcraft enjoyer, I've played Final Fantasy. However, most of my experience with video games is my 13,000/14,000 hours playing World of Warcraft. So just to point out, that's where my bias is going to lean. So a lot of this experience is going to be heavily leaned towards that.
You know how to find a static in your FC to help you prog uwu? I bet you don't even know what any of those
means.
words mean. So
No,
sit
I
down,
don't.
shut up, and eat your gissel greens, because I'm going to teach you what thee mayhap not knoweth, thy noobliness. Welcome to A Crap Guide to Final Fantasy.
Man, that guy has an ass. Look at that. You know, this guide's gonna be great when this man's more cheeked up than a bakery. This man brought a whole bakery to this guide.
The tank is the person in the front lines of every group, leading the charge to inevitable party wipes, which is because you...
So I played a warrior for 12 years in World of Warcraft. And I was protection spec that entire time. So this is my role. I have always been, and will always be a tank as my main class.
You are the most important person in the party, having slap fights with the boss
And
since
that's not because
everybody
I'm
else is way too
egotistical.
squishy to handle the puss-pounding patty cake. You'll never see Jimmy's soft boots eyeing up the cloud of darkness with his 2x4 and scriggly tree branch. But how hard can tanking be? Turn on your tank stance, do your 1-2-3 combo, and blame the healers when you die, right? That sounds
Yeah!
like somebody who
Fuck
needs
the
their sort
healers!
two privileges revoked. Firstly, tank stance. You turn this on to start gaining enmity. What's enmity? It's where you shout at the bad guys, "Hey, hit me!" They'll be paying attention.
See, that's what I did. So I played Paladin with my Final Fantasy character.
Oh my god, same.
Yo, but it's just like the Sword and Shield is the quintessential tank experience. I wanna be the most important person in the group and get my ass beaten all the time. It's not my masochistic tendencies, it's just because I enjoy having attention. And also having everyone else's lives in my hands. And then putting any blame that would have been mine onto the healer. Because I'm never the fault, it's always the healer.
To you so long as you're dealing damage, so you better be dealing damage and not just having a staring contest. If you don't, then they're gonna start
damage,
indiscriminately
understand.
charging at
No,
the rest
no,
of the
take
party
note.
like a dog at a movie
Damage
theater.
good.
If you are the designated main tank, or in light parties the only tank, make sure this is on. If there isn't...
So this was the thing that I had to get used to going from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy. Even the tanks and healers DPS matters. I mean, technically it does in World of Warcraft, but in a much more minute microcosm. Like in Final Fantasy, it's quintessential that as a healer you can DPS. Unlike World of Warcraft, where you just go AFK.
Another tank in the party and you are the off tank, make sure this is off, unless there's some other bad guys you gotta pull. If you have conflicting stances with the other tank, they will chuck their shoulder pads at you. As a tank, you should make sure the bad guy's ass is facing the party as often as possible, as indicated by the bright glowing half-eaten donut underneath the target. This is so that if the bad guy sneezes,
love
you're
the
the only one
indicators in
getting
this.
down with the sickness. And
Makes
also,
things
if your
so
party
much
has
more
anyone
obvious.
playing any jobs that particularly likes to clap them cheeks, you've provided a bright shiny spanking space. On top of this, as a
Can I
tank,
be
you
boss
are
in this
by
game?
Heidelin's blessings horrible at dancing, which is why you should move as little as possible.
The fucking default dance got me.
Is most of them made by like the same people that made Final Fantasy?
I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting a default dance. You know, oddly enough, I'm actually taking away poignant information from this when I do eventually get back into Final Fantasy. Which we will do, by the way, at some point, once I have enough emotional spoons to handle dealing with what's quintessentially watching paint dry unless I inject my personality into it.
once you've got the enemy's attention. That way, the party can continue to whap the wumpus without having to chase down the bad guy's glorious booty. Just as well,
I
because
love
you
this
have
guy's
control of where the
phraseology.
baddies are, you control how useful everybody else is. So if somebody puts down a useful AoE, stop fucking running away from it. Now that you have the baddie's attention and are in a nice, cozy poking position, you don't have to worry about anything else, right? Ah, that's what I thought you'd say, you dumb fucking horse. Believe it or not, when you die, it's not
Don't
entirely
fucking
the
swear!
hero's fault, just mostly their
Fucking
fault. That
rude.
little bit of responsibility you have
Yep.
is based on how well you
Guys, look at this. This is the chart you need to memorize when you become a tank. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Because when you die, it's never your fault as the tank. And if you play hardcore World of Warcraft, this just instantly becomes all of the green. Like, all of it is just the healer sucks. You
Wait.
never made a mistake. It was just the
Did you
healer
never
not
get
healing.
blamed playing a paladin? I got blamed all the time.
Yeah,
I
but
feel like
if
in
you
Final
die...
Fantasy, the tank always
Okay,
gets
let's
blamed.
do the analysis here. Okay, so when you're playing an MMO, yeah. So tank, you're the tank. When tank hits 0 health, they die, right? When tank is 0 HP, boss attacks the party. But whose responsibility is it to keep the tank alive? That's right. It's the healer. That healer, if the tank dies, it just means the healer was not keeping up with the tank. Now, the tank's responsibility here is to choose a semantic and a strategy that will allow him or her to handle the boss. But if the healer isn't keeping up with the tank and understanding the importance that the tank is playing and the tank is the most important person in the group, it's not the tank's fault that he chose an unoptimal strategy. It's just the fact the healer wasn't keeping up. Ergo, if the healer's not doing their job, the tank dies, the boss runs amok, and then the party fucking wipes. And then everybody has to take that and blame the healer. Because inevitably it was the healer's fault.
No?
Yes!
What if the tank
You're
pulls
wrong.
too many enemies?
Well, that's just because the healer didn't heal hard enough. If the tank wanted to pull more enemies, then the healer should be healing more. Clearly. Obviously.
Dude, being a healer is like being a gay icon.
Being a healer is like admitting you enjoy sadomasochistic BDSM.
Juggle mitigation. What's mitigation? It's the buttons that make the bad guys' slaps hurt less that you sometimes press
Or you're
once a
projecting
subscription
yourself
and never
loathing
think
into a
about
video
again.
game.
You ever wonder why you have several of those buttons that all seem like they do the same thing? Well, that's because
Look!
you're supposed to space them out over the course of a fight so the healers don't have to sacrifice their entire mana pool and firstborn child to get your frail ass through the dungeon. Remember not to bust your tanking load all at once or else you're gonna feel a lot of shame when you're all out of juice and the boss still wants to go about 4 more rounds. Every tank also has a press
like my
X
sex
to not
life.
die button that can be used to survive any devastating attacks, or if you're a really aggressive paladin who drew every enemy in a dungeon ever
Hey,
and
don't
want the
call me
healer
out
to
like
hire
this.
a hitman on you. As for what your limit break does, tanks are thicker than the average Disney mom, to the point you're
Disney knows what they're doing. Also, this was something I still don't get. I still do not understand the limit break, and I probably will never. My tiny World of Warcraft TikTok adult brain cannot comprehend what this bar means. To me, it's just a shiny little decoration on my screen.
to the point your honky chonky donkey bahonky extends to the rest of the party, protecting them from damage up to a whopping 80% at LB3. The thing is, unless you're a high-end player, you'll probably be using tank LB as frequently as a good player rolls high on loot. Overall, you have 4 flavors to choose from: punk, grunge, metal, and Christian rock. There's warrior for big axes, big anger, big self-healing, and if you like to do fell cleaves, again and again and again and again. If you prefer more brooding than cruding, the Dark Knight is great for doing your best guts impression. You get a huge-ass sword, goopy black energy
Nah,
particle effects, and
dude,
the literal
I'm sorry, but if you're a tank in any video game, you need a sword and a shield. It's just the way it is. I mean, don't call me out on Death Knights from World of Warcraft. Don't call me out on Druids. Just because warriors are the only ones who use swords and shields, they're not wrong. Everyone else just needs to get with the times. Just saying.
Were you a sword and shield player in Monster Hunter?
Oddly, yes.
best mitigation in the entire game, but
It's
it's
an
balanced because they
aesthetic
get the
choice.
worst invulnerability button in the entire game. You press it and then it makes you die. Gunbreaker is called a tank, but everybody knows it's just 3 DPS in a trench coat, as designated by the fact you get a fucking gun and your swings explode. But you have to be a
Oh my
hardcore
God, this is
gamer
actually
since it
giving me so
requires
much
a lot of
motivation to play
cartridges.
Final
And
Fantasy
finally,
again.
the paladin, who tries to pretend they're a healer and caster, but only when the other healers and casters are looking. But fuck all that, because the most important thing is that you get the motherfucking sword and shield, baby!
Yeah, baby!
Try getting behind this wall of
See?
holiness, bitch!
He knows.
Now you know how to play tank, you're
Joe
welcome.
knows. Yeah, Joe knows. Sword and shield meta, baby. You're not a tank unless you got sword and shield. Like, that's just the way it is. Okay, so now we know about tanking. Let's learn about self-deprecation, otherwise known as healing.
I love power, and I love feeling powerful. It strokes my biggly wiggly and forces lesser beings to bow down to my awesome might, lest they taste my boot between their gums. Nothing has ever given me the same rush
Also,
of...
slight tangent, you may know Joe for these, but I found Joe because of his I like girls video. I like big girls, small girls, itty bitty tall girls.
You're one of
I love
those.
animation. Yeah, baby. Joe knows.
adrenaline than knowing that everybody has to submit to my whims for their own safety. It makes my brain do the goody good chemicals and allows me to feel as though I have control over this truly unfortunate reality.
Now, not that I'm gonna hark on healers here, but healers are just people who wanted to be tanks but lacked the skill and prowess to understand how to take control of a situation. So ergo, they still want that power over keeping people alive, but they don't want the responsibility of actually having responsibilities. Because that's just the way it rolls, baby.
That the universe is slowly careening into an eventual heat death, and there's nothing anybody can do about it, as we are inconsequential specks in
That
this
and
cruel
all
and
healers have to be
uncaring
girls,
universe.
as
But
is
none
the
of
way
that
of the
matters,
internet.
because look at this, I can pull my party members into a pit that kills them. I find that hilarious. Welcome to a
Leap
crap
of
guy
faith in
Final
World of
Fantasy.
Warcraft? Wait, that's it? Oh, no. I got debated again. Like, healers are just... Like, guys, we all know it. Healers in any video game ever are just girls who rolled a nat 1 on charisma. And that's it. That's all the healers in every game ever. That's a joke. Don't cancel me.
The greatest power of all is the power to have control over people's lives, which is why the healer is the most likely party member to have a god complex. Right behind main tanks, mentors, and anybody who's an omnicrafter. You are the most important person in the party, as you, along with the tank, are responsible for keeping the party alive by kissing their boo-boos and slapping the bitch who made the boo-boo. That's right, as a healer,
I love Joe's animation style. It's so simple and easy, and honestly, anyone could replicate this, but it's how he puts his personality behind it that works so well.
That's right, as a healer, you do have to deal damage as well. Man, but it's
Yeah,
called a
see?
healer, and healers are supposed to heal, right? Wrong! A healer's job is
That's
not...
what the in healer is. It's heal actually I'm gonna DPS.
necessarily to heal the party, but rather to keep them alive. And yes, there's a difference. There's going to be a lot of downtime between heals, and you bet your afflatus rumpus that you're making the fight take longer than it has to if you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for your next chance
It's
to
like
cast
a-
cure.
Dragon,
What
that's
do you
like
do
a
when the
disc
party's
priest in
full
World of
health? What
Warcraft.
do you do when the party's full health, or even halfway up and standing? DPS the bad guys. No, I don't pay your sub. But when the fight takes too long, it starts to rub all up on everybody's nerves. And when you hit endgame, it serves you right. When the boss will wipe the party, cause you couldn't beat Enrage. Sure, you're for the most part keeping the
What a
party alive
song.
with a variety of healing, utility spells, some regen, some shields. But an equal amount of time you're casting those, you're also throwing in some extra DPS when time allows. Remember, DPSing is...
And once again, I'm going to compare this to World of Warcraft, which, by the way, guys, we're actually going to be streaming some HC World of Warcraft Classic at some point soon. Yes, I hate myself. Yes, it's going to be completely nonsense. Yes, I'm going to make it look as entertaining as possible. No, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm doing it because I want to.
I've never played World of Warcraft.
Honestly, you're saving yourself some hassle, honestly. And I realize this is probably the thing. Most people here don't play MMOs. MMOs have become a very niche thing in the modern era. People are far too busy getting their attention span addled by Fortnite or whatever else.
I like how you're
It's just
bashing
mitigating
on
few-
healers, but you know that I am now playing healer in a D&D tournament.
That's because I have faith in you, Lynn. So you better not squander that faith, you hear me?
future damage. And if you're able to kill the current wave of dungeon mobs before they deplete the tank's HP, which by the way is going to regen to full by the time you reach the next mob pull anyway, what does it matter how low their HP gets? So yes, DPS when time allows. When does time allow? Well, I know you're scared of independence and thinking by yourself, but that's going to be a balancing act you'll have to figure out. However, my rule of thumb is the minimum amount of HP a party member has to be at is 1. But if that's
Exactly,
too
so long as they don't
scary,
die.
for you weedle
Hi,
fiendies, ask
Melon.
yourself, will the enemy's next attack make your party member fall on their ass? If yes, heal so that it doesn't. If no, time to become a glare mage, motherfucker. As long as they're alive and you're clearing the content, you're doing your job right. There is one caveat to doing your job right, and that's that everybody will hate you for it. Literally,
Yep.
by healing, you start to generate a lot of aggro from the bad guys. So if you ever decide to heal before mob pulls in dungeons, it's important to stick close to the tank like an ERPer sticks to Vieira's wearing 2B thigh highs. Especially
How did they know what 90% of my time spent playing Final Fantasy included? Look, if they didn't want me to ERP with them, they wouldn't be wearing Nier Automata high thighs. It's like going to Goldshire in World of Warcraft on an ERP, on a roleplay server.
If you throw on a regen and suddenly 800 mobs crash through the wall with a How to Fry Fairies cookbook, you can still do it, but you should know what you're getting into. Like live streaming and hoping that anybody will watch. As for your
You okay, Makari? It feels like you related a lot to that.
I'm fine.
heard you like healing, so we put more healing in your healing so you can heal while you heal. Unfortunately, you won't be using any limit break aside from LB3 because LB1 and 2 just heal the party, and you already have plenty of band-aids and popsicles to do that on your own. LB3, however, is so potent in healing it resurrects everybody in the party back from the dead instantaneously.
Oh shit!
But they will have to do the
Oh,
thriller
that's
afterwards,
right,
so it's
because
best
like
to-
Final Fantasy, you can get like in World of Warcraft, you just get battle reses, which revive like only a certain amount of people during an encounter. But you guys can just revive each other willy-nilly during a fight, right? Is that even a penalty?
be safe
Getting
when you at
revived in
least
a
have
fight?
enough people to make a backup dancing crew. For the flavors of healer, we have 3 boomers and the new kid on the block who bought a Glock and has a TikTok. The white mage is the
I
most
like that
straightforward.
idea,
You
actually.
heal when a buddy is hurt and you attack when they're not. Just about everything in your arsenal is all about feeding them so much it'll make an inflation artist blush in embarrassment. You're also
Hey,
equipped with the best
I
AoE
don't
skill in
blush
the
in
entire game
embarrassment
and
of
the
that.
ability to never run out of mana unless you're really, really bad. Best of all, when your buddies get hurt, you can heal them to harness their
Blood for the blood lily.
But let's say you want to play white mage, but you like tarot readings and star signs like a suburban woman in her mid to late 20s.
Not my choice.
Astrologian is probably for you. You draw cards that will enhance the abilities of your party members, and you fill the arena with enough space dust and constellations that you'll need 5 layers of sunglasses to see. Taking
So I like playing healer in World of Warcraft, but that's only when I'm not wanting to play my tank and don't have the effort to put in the concentration enough to be a tank. Healer's just tank, but healer's just the same mentality as tank, but less effort required, I guess.
this job will also teach you how to build a bomb. Don't worry, it's friendly. Scholar is a weirdo who used to hang out with all the bad DPS kids, but decided to turn their life around when they met a nice girl who supports them in their new hobby. Only problem is she knows nothing about your hobby, and you have to keep correcting her on fandom trivia. They're all about putting shields and defensive buffs that protect the party from taking damage in the first place. That way they can guess what? DPS even more. Also, your girlfriend can get thick. And finally, the new kid on the block, the Sage,
New
the scholar who
waifus.
decided to stop being nice and pick up a gun that shoots lasers. Like Scholar, they also put shields and protective
that
buffs
was
on their
I
party
saw that
members so they
original,
can spend
and it
more
kind of
time
weirded me out a lot.
lasers. How do they do this?
Lasers!
After seeing Alphino change to the job, my guess is the Nullists are liquefied carbuncles. Rest in peace, Carby. And now you know how to play
I'm gonna heal you with weaponry!
healer. You're welcome.
Oh, that's it. Nice! And finally, and the most important class, the DPS.
The class
Everybody likes
everybody
to do damage.
plays.
Don't
Look, everyone's gonna play DPS at some point or another. It's the flavor that you play.
pretend like you don't, because I know you're lying. Otherwise, why would you be playing an RPG with core mechanics such as leveling up, getting stronger, and looking fashionable as fuck? It's to do massive numbers on the other guys until their numbers are so
Numbers
small they
good.
match the PP size of anybody who doesn't commend at the end of a duty.
And this is obviously the point where you realize that if you're doing bigger numbers than the guy next to you, your PP is bigger. Obviously.
Is that not how it works?
No, that is how it works.
Yeah.
If you are higher on the DPS and you're doing more damage than the other guy, you are infinitely stronger and wiser than those guys.
The
Oh,
other
God
members leaving
forbid
too
you
quickly
do
is
less
no
damage than a
excuse. How do you
tank.
expect to move quick enough to avoid AoEs if you can't even move quick enough to tell your allies they're doing a great job and that their glamour is sexy? Is that uncharacteristically nice of me? Maybe, but it means I get to steal the LB3 from the only melee in the group. Welcome to a crap guide to Final Fantasy.
That's harsh for the healers. Life is harsh, and I'm harsher, baby. I say what we're all thinking. I have no
Today I'm going to
filter.
be talking
Also,
about
your mum's
every
hot.
job.
What?
That's right. What, you thought only the DPS have to DPS? Boy, I
Chad's
could slap
mom
you with my
has got it
overflowing glamour
going
dresser.
on.
Damage is the name of the game in Final Fantasy XIV, and the entirety of the game is designed around everybody dealing it, including the tanks and the healers. If the DPS roles are contributing 60% of the damage, tanks and healers are the ones who fill in the other 40. So if you don't contribute, you belong in the garbage chute. So don't get so hung up on the role names. Everybody is a DPS.
Yeah!
What I mean specifically is that, one, not only is FF14 a cooperative game, which means anytime you waste is not only yours, but also anybody else in your party as well.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why the MMO genre has gone down the shitter. Because people, A, got tired of having to let their enjoyment of a video game be reliant on other people's ability to play the game, but also effort. Why play a video game that requires you to pay attention when you can just play Fortnite and get that instant goody-goody dopamine rush?
well. And 2, every combat feature in FF14 is designed with dealing damage in mind. Healers and tanks get skills that actively promote doing more DPS. Hell, Sage is a healer whose skills actively benefit from doing DPS. And most importantly of all, Enrage. Enrage is what happens when you overstay your welcome in a dungeon or boss arena and the residents have run out of...
Enrage is what happens when you speak your mind to a VTuber on Twitter. That it doesn't involve titties and or eating the ass of somebody.
things to talk about and are just really ready for you to leave so they can finally go poop without being worried that you're going to steal all their old DreamWorks DVDs. That is to say, you're either forcefully kicked out or alternatively they instantly murder you. How do you prevent this from happening? You murder them first, of course, and then you pop in a copy of Shrek 2 so you can watch the castle siege again. And the later and later in the game you
Shrek
get,
2
the
is
more
an
and more
amazing
frequent
movie.
enrages start to appear,
Yeah.
and they'll have more and more health too.
You know, supposedly we're supposed to be getting a new Shrek movie, right?
Yeah, Shrek 5. Puss
Not-
in Boots 2 was actually really good.
They were thinking of doing a remaster of the original as well. And I'm not
Do
sure
we
how I feel
need
about that.
Like, do we need that? No, we
No,
don't.
we do not. No, we do not. Let Mike
At some point,
Myers.
we don't need remakes anymore, right? 'Cause
Let
we've gone to
Michael
the
Myers
classics
retire.
Level.
You know what we're waiting on though? We're waiting on the live action Shrek movie. I know there's a Broadway for Shrek, and that shit looks heinously creepy.
Too. So if somebody decides they just don't feel like they want to cooperate in this team game they decided to play, and now the boss has an eighth of its health left and is about to destroy the entire universe, Princess Fiona isn't going to be the only one who will need a hero. Hopefully it's been drilled into your head now that DPSing is essential. Not just for the jobs with the title sticker, but also anyone in a fancy robe or edgy trench coat as well. Now that you know that, how does one go about dealing max deeps? The first most basic thing is to do your
Celsi!
combos. Press a button.
Hi.
See another button light up? Press that one. Congratulations, you have successfully completed a combo. And doing so
Woo!
will reap a myriad of benefits, from putting damage over time on your target, gaining mana, doing your taxes, or any variety of other...
And this again is the issue with MMOs, is the barrier for entry. I mean, to be fair, sure, you can pick up any... Like, the reason why Final Fantasy works so better is because the experience of getting to max level and going through the story is, like, it's much more front-loaded. World of Warcraft, nobody gives a fuck anymore because there's just nothing to do until you hit max level. And even then, it's so two-dimensional. Which is such a shame. It's why WoW Classic has been doing so well. Because I legitimately think MMOs should be about the experience of and the journey rather than the end game. I mean, end game is nice, but if the process of getting there is more flatlined and blander than British cooking, is it honestly worth it?
I mean, Baldur's Gate did pretty well.
Exactly. Like, the journey should be equally as important as the destination, and unfortunately, WoW just doesn't do that in retail. That's why Final Fantasy works so well. The story's there, it's important, it's front and center. It's honestly, the story for Final Fantasy is honestly probably more important and fleshed out. Like, it shows that sign by the fact that people will make the story their entire priority rather than the end game. And the socializing, and that's something that modern WoW doesn't have anymore. One of the things I noticed the second I got into Final Fantasy was when I went to Limsa Lominsa, fucking even Ul'dah, people were just hanging out. People were, like, actually doing the massively multiplayer online part of the MMO name. Like, in retail WoW, you go into a main city and nobody talks. No one's hanging out with each other. No one's talking. There's no interactions. It's just, waiting for my queue, dude. Waiting for my queue, waiting for my raid. At least in classic WoW, people are going like, "Oh, dude, I need help with this elite quest," or, you know, let's go for this dungeon or something. And I've never experienced an MMO where so much organic interactions happen than in Final Fantasy. Like going into Limsa Lominsa, seeing all the bards and the fashion and people hanging out with each other. It's so wholesome. As much as I still find WoW to be enjoyable, for me, WoW is more of a sunk cost fallacy. I've spent so much time in it that I feel like I have to keep playing it, but I have infinitely more enjoyable experiences playing Final Fantasy at this point.
We'll just wait for the Riot MMO to come out.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are doing. I mean, it's unfortunate because MMOs in general just are not as popular as they used to be. I wish they were. I mean, I'm hoping that at BlizzCon we get an announcement of Classic Plus, but whether that happens or not. Maybe eventually.
Slowly ruin the
All right,
game
what do you
again.
guys think? If you're watching us on YouTube, do you think we're going to get a renaissance of the MMO era? Do we think we're going to have a new era where MMOs are the big thing again? I think it could happen. I do legitimately think it could happen, but it's going to require the right kind of approach from the right developer. We'll see.
other additional effects, but mostly it all achieves the same goal of dealing more damage. Secondly, you want to press these skills that the game labels as abilities and the community calls off global cooldowns, or OGCDs for short. More like OGCDs nuts! I personally call
More
them free
like
damage buttons.
OCD for those with ADHD and RPG and ERP action. Hell yeah.
They cost you nothing and there's literally no reason not to press them while your normal cooldown is rolling. But this one has a long cooldown. What if I need it later? No, it doesn't. Shut up. Cooldowns in this game are so short you might as well press them because by the time you need them...
Okay, sorry. Last pause, I promise. And I realize I'm going back on what I said earlier. I want to hear from everyone now. Name me an MMO that you have played or are still playing that you think upholds and is still relevant in the modern era. There's a few of them. There are some that have fallen off, but there are still some that do amazing work in the modern era. And I know there's a huge audience, especially with our community, that still enjoy this kind of stuff.
Again, whoop, they're back up. Not to mention, many jobs require you to press those free damage buttons to unlock even spankier damage buttons. So use your goddamn free damage buttons. It's free damage! The next rule of DPSing is knowing your ABCs. Always be casting! This means mashing away at your keyboard like a tickle monster.
ABCs, always be doing damage. Yeah.
Working double time. More specifically, it means that the best way to make sure you are doing the most damage that you can is to always have your global cooldown
Is
going.
Ark
Even if
an
it means
MMO?
accidentally
Kind
pressing
of.
the wrong skill
There
like
are
the single
MMO
brain cell that you
adjacent
are.
games
Because if you're
like,
always pressing
Ark.
buttons, even the suboptimal one, you are doing more damage than if you weren't. And doing damage is always better than not doing damage. Yes, even.
I'm sorry, could you restate that again? My ADHD, TikTok, attention span addled brain did not manage to take that in. Please repeat for me once again, oh Joe.
Doing the most damage that you can is to always have your global cooldown going, even if it means accidentally pressing the wrong skill like the single brain cell that you are. Because if you're always pressing buttons, even the suboptimal one, you are doing more damage than if you weren't. And doing damage is always better than not doing damage. Yes, even Skaith. Here's a live example with my two subjects, Jan and Chloe. They both deal 1 million damage and suddenly
Woo!
the boss flies
1
out of
million
melee range.
damage.
Jan sits there waiting patiently
Although
for the
those
boss
are
to
rookie
return
numbers in
before she can
Diablo.
start doing 1 million damage again. Meanwhile, Chloe's pressing the deal 1 damage at a range button the entire time they're waiting. I ask you, puny viewer, which person is dealing more damage right now? Yeah, but it's only 1 damage. Who's dealing more damage? As if any fight is going to get so close that dealing
Yes, the average
dealing more
argument with a
damage?
WoW
Sure, it
enjoyer.
might not look like much, but it's going to matter when they fight the boss that has 3,000,002 health and they wipe all because the other DPS decided they don't want to press buttons. It's such little DPS, it won't make a difference. Sure.
Anyone who's played an MMO for more than 5 minutes has had that happen to them.
I just get bored if I don't have like.
I used to hardcore raid in WoW and was doing like server first content. The amount of times we wiped on a progression fight in that
Bottom
I
carry,
am not a
bottom
bottom.
carry, bottom carry, bottom carry, bottom carry, bottom carry.
Apart from in League of Legends, totally a bottom lane person.
Take that, Twitch cut. I like you, new fan. I like
Yeah, no, Niva's great. You should follow them. But that's the thing, right?
Stream?
Yeah, no, Mythic raiding burnt me out as well. I was like I think the best I ever did in World of Warcraft was I was in a top 100 raiding guild at one point. But now, with the way World of Warcraft is, saying you're in a top 100 raiding guild is like saying you hate yourself.
Who is your ADC main? Yeah, Makari, who's your ADC main?
Riven.
But you played League?
I did, yes! I told you this!
What do you mean you told me? You didn't tell me this?
My main ADC was Riven. My main mid or bottom lane was Vel'Koz, and my main jungler was your mum because your mum's wild in that
She thinks
jungle.
Riven is an ADC. Yikes.
I never said I
my
played it
favorite
well.
ADC is, my favorite ADC is Xayah. In the jungle, I play Evelynn. In top lane, I play Poppy. In the jungle, I play Poppy. In the mid lane, I play Poppy. I like Poppy. So, is there another character? Whew. There's so many good man. Most misfortune is today. Ari is great.
Oh yeah, Zephyr. Well, here's Zephyr. This is why we break the cornerstone of being a VTuber. Sure, we have titties, but there's also personalities here. Because if anything, the VTuber sphere has really made us realize that having vapid content that's based entirely around sex and sexualization is incredibly two-dimensional and limiting. So I like to mix in both. I'm crude, not lewd. Which might turn off 90% of the audience out there, but hey, for those 10% who stay, we're gonna have a good time.
Jam.
Content!
One of the best things you should do to improve your damage in Final Fantasy XIV is this. It's really simple. I want you to lean in.
Yeah,
It's a super
yeah.
simple
Listen,
thing.
lean
Here,
in,
come
guys.
close.
Lean
I'm
in,
gonna
lean in.
say the thing. Are you ready? Okay, here it goes. Read your tooltips. The little block of text that literally
Something
tells
about
you what your
tips.
skills do.
I only heard about the
Honestly, you
tip.
would be surprised how many people queue into
Something
an
about
expert
just the
dungeon
tip.
and never realize they have a skill that can attack multiple targets. Even all the things I tell you in this video, the combos, the range attacks, the AoE damage skills, the free damage buttons. The best way to know what your job is capable of is by reading your job skill tooltips yourself. So you better read your goddamn tooltips, because if I see another player not knowing about their AoE combo and a mob pull at level 80, I'm gonna grab the nearest aetherite and bash you so hard you're gonna be teleported to the final resting place of every ERPer's used undergarments. With all that out of the way, you'd think I'd covered
Oh my god, talk dirty to me more.
everything you need to do to be an ultimate clearing badass, right? Unfortunately, not Waffle Face, because the final responsibility every single role in Final Fantasy XIV
I
shares
have
is
played Final
not
Fantasy XIV
dying.
Nuba.
Oh, sure, the healers help, but
And I
most
do
of the
fully
time,
plan
your
on
own
streaming
survival is
again.
on you and only you.
When
And
my
that
brain
means
isn't
making
being
sure you do
stinky.
the fight mechanics and don't take avoidable damage like it's got the cheese touch. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you in the middle of your cast? You want to try and hit that purple parse like the big man you are? That's too damn bad! Each time you take damage that is avoidable, it means the healer has to heal
Perfect
you
use
and
of a
they're
meme.
dealing less damage. And on top of that, you get this cheese puff called a vulnerability stack. For each stack you have, you take more and more damage until you get one shot when the enemy farts in your general direction. All this to say, if you don't avoid enemy damage, you will not only make the healer do less DPS, but you're also likely going to die, which means 0 DPS. And if you still think that's not a big deal and the healers can just res you, each time you die, you get a dunce cap of shame that reduces your DPS even more.
Oh,
for about as long as a red
that-
light in
okay, so that
Philadelphia.
answers my
you
question
better
from
stay
earlier.
alive, or else I'm gonna raise you so I can rescue you into an AoE and kill you myself. To recap, everybody's DPS matters. Press your free damage buttons. Always be casting. Read your
Nodding,
tooltips,
nodding,
stay
noted,
alive.
noted.
But even if you keep all those things in mind, the #1 rule to improve your DPS performance is to practice. Striking dummies are all over the goddamn
you
place,
lost
out
me.
in the overworld, and even in the yards of some random people's houses in the residential districts. So if you see one, there's no shame in whacking it a few times like you're auditioning to be a dominatrix. I'm sure the neighbors won't mind. Practice makes perfect. and
well,
even all
I'm
the
already
foresight
there.
in the world will not
Do you not
fully
see how I'm
translate into
dressed?
the doing. So go and do
I'm
that
basically
doing so that one day
Halloween's
you too can
version
do
of a
the do and
dominatrix.
make everybody else look like doo-doo because of how good your doing skills are. And with how much doing you'll be doing, maybe someday you too can clear an ultimate and get a shiny-ass weapon of your own to show off to people AFKing at the Limsa Aetherite Plaza. Just know the difference between an amateur and a master is that a master has
Achoo!
failed way more times. By the way,
my
get ready for a party
personalities.
fight. Wait, what? Congratulations, you're now better at the game than you were 5 seconds ago. Oh! And now you know how to DPS, you're welcome.
Aw, thank you, Joe. Guys, isn't Joe so helpful? Can we all just thank Joe for being so educational? What a great
Joe.
guy making these informative videos. Now never to use it because I'm never going to play Final Fantasy again. Whoop!